Hello and welcome to Get a Grip on Rebates, brought to you by TCP, the craziest people in lighting. That's TCPI.com. TCP's got everything you'd want in lighting, everything that's rebatable. They carry it. They got it. So, John, welcome back. New year, new agenda, new meeting, new sponsor. How you doing?
New sponsor. Man, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I've been looking forward to this today because it is a new year, but I want to pick right up with our last topic because I was triggered last time and triggered and then deeply disturbed, Juan Carlos. I was thinking about this in the middle of the night. You remember our last topic?
Oh yeah, you were definitely triggered by our friends at Get a Grip on Lighting. They were bringing up all the stipulations that come with utility programs, and then they brought up decommissioning.
You know,
And I know that you had some issues there. So talk to me a little bit about what was going on in your head. That is.
well, I've had a chance to dissect this, and I'm glad that I'm not going to be approaching it quite in quite the reactionary fashion that I might have represented myself on. So, you know, I loved where that podcast started. When Eric was bringing up, it was like the all utility greatest hits parade, in quotes, of just all the most ridiculous specifications where, people are just rolling their eyes out of their head, wondering what's going on at the utility, right? And
Right.
and then Culligan, he starts running with it. He's like, I got a project. And he brings up decommissioning. And he's like, and then we tagged in decommissioning. We're gonna get all this money for that. And I was like, what? And I remember I jumped in and I was like, man, I gotta tell you, as a utility dude, even though I try to be this like, I'm a voice, I'm a friend of industry, but nothing raises the sort of like red flags and just sets a utility in a like defensive posture for oversight for all that other stuff we don't like, trying to process jobs and make things happen and get those rebates, as when you show up on a site and all of a sudden it just feels like the contractor is trying to squeeze every last thing in there, and that's what they're telling the customer they're going to get.
Right.
And I was like, dude, you got to pump the brakes on that. Uh,
Yeah, no, I absolutely hear where you're going to. I laughed. I'm going to be honest with our viewers and listeners out there. I am not an expert in this area at all. John is definitely has more at stake in this world, but I understood where you come from. The utilities definitely are constantly having to deal with these issues of true savings versus assumed savings, and I think that's where decommissioning comes into play. So, John, why don't you explain a little bit more about what we're talking about when we're saying decommissioning and how that affects the utility programs?
sure. And I think some of our audience is already going to be hip to this, but I'm going to, share. This is when you get on site to a project and you can see that a new generation of lighting has been installed, and the old stuff was never completely taken out, right? There's a legacy.
Right.
You're seeing the pipe and wire, and the fixtures are probably there. They might even have bulbs in them that don't work, right? Or it's like, a mercury vapor that just hasn't, whatever, it's been there for 50 years. And so sometimes utilities will incentivize for that stuff to be torn out, right? And actually, here's where, because Michael and I, we reached a bridge because he was like, oh no, we only got like 10% of the incentive, and I was like, that's fair, that's fair. ten
Yeah. Yep.
percent of
Yep.
the incentive for that is fair. And what utilities need to do better is utilities need to be clear about what that policy is. If they leave it open or if they don't specify it, then it's open to gamesmanship, right? Which I guess we should expect. But where I was triggered is like, man, just because they didn't specify,
Right. I
you,
think I
you, you,
think I think our friend Michael. I think he wanted the full incentive for all the fixtures that were there. I think his argument was that hey, they were wired, the ballasts were in, so they count because they could be turned on at any time. And so if you're replacing them, then you should get the incentive that comes from replacing or removing. But that doesn't make sense to the utility. It doesn't make sense, particularly when you're talking about a custom program, which we were discussing then, and he was all in it because he was so excited about custom programs. But how does this work, or what's the effect for the programs that are starting to really come down the barrel, like midstream and prescriptive programs? Where does decommissioning come into play there? Because that's what I'm not so sure about.
Yeah, that's a good question, man. I don't know if it's always if there's an exactly this is replacing that, right? We are seeing as the technology changes and some of the bases change out, it's not always super clear that you know the new product replaces something exactly that was there before. I think by and large it's going to remain a custom project thing. That's probably where it makes the most sense, where there's enough of it in place and it's part of a bigger project, and then the utility says, "Hey, we recognize there's some cost getting that stuff out of there. Here's my deal, man. It's like, yeah, anybody could turn it on, but it hasn't been turned on for the last 20 years. So how much energy are we saving, right? It's like I'm throwing you a bone, 10%. But the utility needs
Yeah,
to say
yeah,
10% so that it's never a question.
yeah. Our specifiers and our designers and our distributors need to understand that. Remember, for utilities, it's always about what are the savings that they're getting from the replacement products, not what are the
Right.
savings that could potentially be gotten from installations that were put in 20 years ago but not used for the last 10. So again, I can't share this enough with our listeners that the utilities have to make this cost effective about savings for them. They can't just give you money because you expect to have a utility rebate.
I got to be honest. What was keeping me up at night wasn't the fact that I trampled on Michael's toes or, uh, you know, like the bitter policy discussions of what utilities are paying. What really bothered me is I was like, man, I'm not trying to come off. I don't want to be typecast as the utility guy here. You know what I'm saying? I'm a friend of industry. I got to break out of that mold. And so I was like, man, I can't be coming on this podcast always. I want utilities to pay it, but friend of industry,
Well,
ambassador.
hey, maybe for this year, you can be the industry guy, and I'll keep defending the utilities. I got clients all over the place. I got them on the industry side. I got them on the utility side. But I'll be the friend of utility. I've always had their back, so maybe I'll play that role. You can be a friend of our industry. How does that feel for 2021?
Hey, I think that's the show, man. Listen, let's wrap it up and say this: TCP Lighting. They got a little bit of everything, right? Not just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a lot of bit of everything. TCPI.com. Check them out. Tango Charlie Papa. TCP.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for joining us on Get a Grip on Rebates. That was John Wilson. I'm Juan Carlos Blacker, and we'll see you next time.